welcome to the second part of the unboxing and using of the Checiegirl Mixed Media subscription box, June themed fun with fibers. So if you would like to see the unboxing for this video, please do follow the iCard in the top right hand corner and it'll take you straight to part 1. And you'll be able to see exactly what's in the box. So I am setting up my embroidery hoop, which is 8 by 8 inches, and with that undyed cotton fabric, which is approximately 12 by 12 inches, which is a nice size so that you can adjust how you want it. I'm just making sure everything's nice and tight, and then I just tighten up that little screw bit. So I thought it would be nice to use this chiffon fabric to put on kind of half of the embroidery hoop. So I just cut a curve so that it will kind of fit the the edge of the embroidery hoop. And now I'm going to add some paint. So I'm just getting out the paintbrush and this Viridian, and there is some Daler and Rowney acrylic printing medium included in the kit. So I will show you what it looks like without using that medium, which is used to thin down the paint and make it a lot more manageable and easier to use on fabric. So you can see there it just got soaked up really quickly and it's really hard to spread with the brush. And I've just kind of added some of the acrylic medium to the brush and using that to spread around. You can see that's a little bit easier, but still not as smooth as say you might want it, though this kind of sketchy kind of look might be what you're looking for. But you can see it's really dark where I first applied the paint without the printing medium. And I wanted it to be that, first I wanted it to be that you can kind of see the paint through the fabric. So now I put the same amount of paint I used at first, and now I'm adding about half that amount of the acrylic printing medium. And now you can see how much easier it is to spread around on the fabric. So, and that will also make it dry, not as stiff as it normally would if you just use acrylic paint by itself. And there are instructions included in the box so that you know how to use the printing medium, and I pretty much just use that from the tub and I put that on, but of course you'll see that in the unboxing video. So now I'm just setting things up and thinking about what I want to do next, and I'm just preparing that paint pen, and that is oil based. I did forget to mention that in the unboxing video, and it says it marks on everything, so that should be like wood, glass, fabric, anything really. And I was just setting that up, and it's like a pump one, so you have to press it against a surface to get the paint running. So now I'm going to add some crosses with the orange embroidery thread, and the amount of thread I've cut is hand to heart. So you take you hold the needle with your dominant hand, and then you stretch out your hand so that the end of the thread touches where your heart's supposed to be. Of course, if you're left-handed, it'll be the other way around, but just as long as pretty much just over an arm's length, because that's how far your arm stretches. So yeah, I'm just adding some crosses, and it's very simple really. It's not really rocket science how I did that, just in and out through different bits. So it's like a running stitch really simple, and I wasn't sure how much I wanted to add, so I just put the fabric there just to see if I'd want to fill that whole bare space, and I pretty much do. So I'm just going in and out, trying to not make it look like a deliberate pattern, trying to make it look a little bit random. And I also want the the pattern to kind of go along the shape of the hoop, that circular shape. So while I'm doing that, I thought I would just let you know that there are still a few boxes available on my Tigtail site. So if you're interested, please do follow the links in the description. And there are a few past boxes available as well. So you can find all of those in the description below. as well as my social media pages. So if you do receive one of these boxes, whether past or this one, please do share what you create on the Facebook group, which is linked below. I would love to see your creations. I love to see what you guys create using any products, whether it's from my mixed media box or what you have yourself. It's a group free to share, and you'll also be able to see the behind the scenes of Checiegirl creations. So I'm just finishing off here, well, almost finishing off, just adding a few more crosses. And you can see that they're all not the same size. I'm just doing that very quickly, so they're not perfect. And I just put a knot there. And I've knotted it off there, but now I'm going to add a few more back of the top, but I didn't want to go all the way to the top because then I would have wasted a lot, since it would have taken quite a bit of length to get up to where I wanted, since I was at the bottom of the hoop. So you can see I'm just adding a couple more crosses there. And you can see I'm not really paying attention to like how far apart they are. Some are quite small, some are taller, shorter, wider. And I have this weird thing that everything has to be like in odd numbers. So I'm just counting them to make sure that it was an odd number. And again, knotting it off there. And some of my knots were a little bit dodgy. So I did put some tacky glue at the back of them just to make sure. So even if like my knots were nice and tight, I still like to put tacky glue just to make sure that I'm happy with how that looks. So now I'm going to add some dashes going along that like Viridian paint, using that black paint pen. And I thought first I would only use one line, but then I decided against that, and there I'm just showing you that. Sorry it was out of focus, I didn't realize that when I was shooting the video. But then I decided I wanted 3 lines, and again the dashes aren't perfect, some are bigger, some are smaller. But I quite like that. I wanted it to look quite like sketchy and imperfect. And again, I'm trying to just figure out now how I want the fabric to look. But then I just put that aside for a bit until I decided what I wanted. And then I thought I would use some of this silver like leaf trimming ribbon. And I'm going to use the blue, the light blue embroidery thread to tack that down. So at first I'm going to basically go into like every other leaf, because some of the leaves will hang off the edge of the hoop. So you can see I'm just tacking it down with like just one simple stitch, and then I'll go over like the stem as well, just to make sure that it stays there. And you can see I'll be getting tangled up a lot in this process, because I didn't want to cut it at first, because I just wanted to basically know exactly how much I wanted, and when I got to the end I would cut it. But later on I do, just because having it still connected to like the what I had wrapped it onto was just getting a little bit tedious. And you'll see that I'm struggling a little bit with that needle, and I will change it in a second. The needle that I had put into the box was not sharp enough, but don't worry, I did change that round to a sharper needle for you guys, because I didn't want you to struggle. So I just went out and got some sharper needles. So I will change over to that very long needle there. And I got that from Closing the Loop. Frida Ford, I believe her name is, she came to teach us embroidery, and Closing the Loop is a workshop. I'll link to that actually below. If you are between 16 and 30 and you're like into the circular economy and running your own business, that's a really good workshop for you to check out, and there's still time to join. So I'll put that below in a link below, and you'll also be able to see some of the things I've been doing on my Instagram and Facebook account. So now you can see it's a little bit easier with that sharper needle. It's very long though, which it can be easier at times, but sometimes I did struggle with how long it was, especially since I was so close to the loop. You can see, not the loop, the hoop, sorry. I was really close to the edge of the hoop, which made things a little bit difficult. So if you do want to do something like this, I would say bring it in just a little bit so it's not right next to the hoop. Because what I did was I completely forgot that, of course, there's a hoop behind the fabric. So I was just going with the hoop on the outside, forgetting that there was one on the inside. And I just show you like how close I was to the edge. but I'll show you that again later on when I'm knotting it off. So yep, I'm just doing that, and again getting tangled. This part was just really tedious. I did really like how it turned out though. It just took a while, and trying to hold like the hoop in frame for you guys was really tricky as well, because I had to like have my hand in a really awkward position, because normally when you're sewing and stuff you have your hands quite close to you, but I had to have it like in frame with the camera, so that was a little bit tricky as well. But I really did like how that turned out. So I'm just really tacking it down, again not perfectly. You can see that some of the stitches, especially going over the leaves, some are smaller, some are short, longer. I did like it when it was a little bit longer though. Some of them I did find was a little bit short, so when I started to do some shorter ones and longer ones, I just tried to not make it look like the same. So some were shorter, some were longer, just so it looked intentional. And then the tacking over, I'm just basically going just a little bit further than the other leaf that's not being tacked down, and then I'm just going diagonally over the stem just to tack that down, and it did stay nice and strong, so I'm happy with how that turned out. And you won't see the whole process of this. When I get halfway through, I will cut through to when I'm finished. With the magic of videos, so that you guys don't have to sit through the whole time of me stitching it down, because it is just the same thing over and over again. And again, I'm untying another knot. I was getting myself in a lot of knots. And sometimes it helped just to kind of like have the needle resting on the table and then hold like the leaf over the needle, because sometimes it was just a little bit fiddly. So you can see the variation of the stitches there, and how I'm tacking over the stem a little bit closer there. And I quite liked keeping all the cool colors on one side and all the warm colors on the other side. I thought that looked quite cool. Like there's like a contrast, so you have like the neutral and the oranges next to each other, and then all the blues and greens kind of like close to each other as well. And I really like that like silver leaf ribbon. You can't see it in video, which is a real shame, but in person it's a little bit of a glint like against the light. So that's a shame that you guys can't see it in video. But yes, so I'm halfway through, and by the power of video I am done. And again, just looping that, tying that off, and I used the shorter needle just because it was easier to navigate. The longer needle was a bit tricky next to the edge, and there you can see I'm using some Eileen's tacky glue just to secure some of those knots. So there we are, all those leaves are there. And just to let you know, I was sewing a little bit while that acrylic paint was just a tad wet, but since it was fabric, it did soak in a lot quicker and dry a lot faster, so that wasn't too bad. And it was quite a thin layer as well. I didn't do it too thickly. So now I'm just I've decided that I've changed how I want the fabric to look. I just want it to be like this kind of like, I don't know, like ruffle kind of curtain thing. So I just like folded the fabric in a kind of concertina, like when you're making a paper fan, and then sewed it together like that, so it would create those folds. And I'm just trying to figure out where I want it. And I wanted something like to be on it to kind of like bring it together. So now I'm going through the embellishments I have. Oh, I'm using this paint pen quickly. This is a silver one, again starting it off like how I did with the black pen, and I'm just putting in some arrows pointing downwards, just kind of going with like the curve. And now I'm just going to add some dots here and there on the other side just to bring it over. And as well, the background was a little bit plain, which is why I added that as well. And I could have like splattered it, but I didn't really feel like splashing that time, so I just added the dots. So now I'm just going through my embellishments. There's buttons, there's like these lace flowers, those mirror embellishments, which you can see I've just put down lower on the hoop. And I decided I wanted to use a button, so I went through a few sizes. There's like small, medium, large, and I decided to use the medium. And again, untangling those leaves, it kind of got hooked up in the embroidery thread. So you can see that's one of the lace flowers. And the camera did cut off when I was trying to figure out what I wanted. but you didn't really miss anything. It was just me going through, figuring out what I wanted, and I picked the button. And now I'm just tacking this little fabric element down, again using the blue embroidery thread, so you can't really notice it, though you won't notice it anyway once I add the button. And you can see that I've put the orange through the button to contrast with the blue fabric. And now what I'm doing is I've just kind of put it through the knot, so you can see me knotting it again, which was useful because I actually had to take it off a little bit later in the video. So it wasn't really a permanent tack down, but I was planning to glue that on with tacky glue anyway, just to make sure it stayed. Though I did want to try my best to use only the embroidery fabric to tack things down. So now I just wanted to rub some paint onto the chiffon fabric. So I just mixed a little bit of the paint and the printing medium, just a tad, and used my finger to rub it on just to kind of catch the texture, so it wasn't really too heavy-handed, so you can just kind of see it. And I'll bring that up close to the camera in a little bit so you can see. And then I'm just, making sure I like how the folds look. So you can kind of see how I've caught the texture of the fabric. So now I'm going to add these iridescent seed beads. Now, the needle is not small enough to go through the beads, so I'm just gluing those on with tacky glue. You can use things like hot glue. I guess you can use PVA glue, but I would recommend tacky glue. But you can use anything that you think will stick these down. And you can, of course, add your own needles. If you have any smaller needles, you can use that in your project. I do have some smaller needles, but I just wanted to show you that there's other ways to add your seed beads. And now I decided that I want to mat the button onto something. So I've taken it off. You can see it was very easy. I just had to undo that knot that I put around the blue embroidery thread. And I'm using some of that green like sari silk ribbon, which comes in the kit, and I'm going to cut that into a circle. First I thought a square, but then that just didn't look right next to the button. So I'm cutting that into a circle. And I thought I was being clever, cutting, folding the fabric in half and then cutting, but then it ended up a little bit strange. So I'm just cutting another circle, and then I'll put both of them on top of each other, which actually look quite nice. It added a little bit more volume and interest. I'm just trying to kind of stretch it out a little bit and flatten it just a tad, as well as I'm just kind of pulling off the end so that it has a bit of a rough edge. And I'm just doing that off camera because I didn't really want all the bits to drop on what I was doing. So you can see that looks nice. It really makes the button pop against that darker background. And now I'm just going to sew that on to my project using again some blue embroidery thread. So first I'm just going to sew it together, and then I'll tack it on. And again, I'm using that long needle because it's nice and sharp. And you can see I'm just holding it on, trying to keep it together. And then I'm going to tack on the button. Actually, no, this time I just decided to stick the button down. I was being lazy, so I just stuck it down this time using the tacky glue. And tacky glue is really good, so it really does stick down almost anything. So I just put a glob on so that it will stay nicely and bond with the fabric and the wood. So you do want quite a big blob of glue just to make sure that it does stay on. And there we are. And I did make sure that was dry before I did anything else to that. Okay, so I thought I really wanted to bring some more of the iridescent seed beads into it. So I separated the embroidery thread. Sadly the camera didn't catch that, but I separated the embroidery thread, which you can do, which is nice about embroidery thread. And I'm just basically threading on the beads by hand onto the one ply of that embroidery thread to then go around the button, which looked really nice. And it also drew your eye onto that little the button and like the, oh, what's the word? There's like the focal image of the piece. And it also just brung in like the beads I had put down at the bottom. And because it would have been a little bit fiddly to try to apply the glue straight from the bottle onto where I wanted it, I'm just using a paintbrush. This is not normally a brush I would use with glue, but I did wash it out with like soap and water straight away, so that it wouldn't get damaged. Oh, and I did forget to mention, do wash your paintbrush or any tools you do use with the acrylic printing medium with soap and water, because even if you rinse it out with water, you can still kind of feel the medium in it. So I would recommend doing that. It also does say that in the instructions, just to make sure that your tools and especially your paintbrush doesn't get damaged. So now I'm just adding some more, some spots, again with the paint pen, but this time the black one, as you can see. And I am trying to make sure to add it behind the fabric, because since the fabric's kind of see-through, you can see whether there's marks or not. And I'm just tying that thread there, and I was going to leave that hanging, and you'll see me like cut it to the same length as the orange one, but I thought it looked a bit odd, so I decided to cut that off. And I did do that off camera. So now I'm going to add some more crosses, again with the orange embroidery thread. I thought it looked a little bit empty. And yeah, I'm just kind of still keeping with like the shape of the embroidery hoop, and just kind of keeping the curve. I quite like how it looks with the curve. I didn't really want to do it in like a straight line, and knotting it off, and you'll see me knot it off and cut and knot it off and cut, because I am moving around the embroidery hoop just a little bit, and that was a very dodgy knot, so I just put quite a bit of tacky glue on there. And now you can see I've completely removed like the focal image of that. I thought I was going to change my mind on it, but then I decided that actually I wanted to keep it. So I will put that on later, but I wanted to add some more crosses. It just looked a little bit empty, even with like the fabric on there. I just wanted to add some more crosses. So I'm just going around adding it, and I have put aside the uneven numbers, because once it gets to like quite a lot of things, it doesn't really matter anymore to me. So again, I'm just adding it, and you can see that I kind of did go into like a diagonal line by accident when I was doing the crosses, but if you look at it in a whole, it doesn't you can't really notice it that much, which is good. So yeah, it was like a kind of diagonal line that just was going across the embroidery hoop, so it still did look like a curve instead of like a straight line, because then that wouldn't have really worked that much, I don't think, considering I was working on like a circular base, sorry. So yeah, just adding some more. And if you think I'm going a little bit too fast, you can always slow down the video using like by clicking a gear sign. I'm not too sure about where it is. I think it's like at the bottom around where you can click like full screen, and you can slow the video down if you want to see the stitches in more detail, but it really is nice and simple. And I also did include some like basic stitches in the little booklet that has the instructions for the printing medium, so that you can follow that if you want to. So now you can see I've decided to go back and add the fabric again. I did add it a little bit too low, so I do have to undo that. But if you haven't knotted something, then it's fine, because all you have to do is take your needle off and just pull the thread through, and it'll be as if you didn't do a stitch, and then you can just adjust it to suit. And you can see that because I use glue, like the button and the ribbon and seeds are still like together, which was useful. I didn't have to do that again. So I'm just tacking down that fabric, but this time I'm not going to use glue to stick it down, stick the button down. I did just go through the button, and it was a little bit tricky because I had used glue and there was a couple like layers there, but I was able to figure that out. I had to pull quite hard on the needle there to get it through. So now I'm just tacking that down there, and that'll be nice and secure. So you can see I'm just really tugging on that there. It was quite really difficult there. I think that's where most of the glue was. So I'm just making sure I like how that looks. And I'm going to knot that off. And some you can see I tie it, especially if it's close to like the original end, but if it's not, then I just like do this. I'm not too sure how to explain it. You just kind of go through like a stitch without going through the fabric, then you like go through this little loop that you've left like a few times, and then you pull it tight, and that should be a really good knot. And now I'm going to stitch the word breathe. Now when I'm stitching words, I do keep the stitches quite small just so that it just can go with like the curves of letters. Like say the B, you don't want to make too much of a big stitch because then it'll look boxy. Now if you want it to look like boxy letters, then that's fine, but I wanted mine to look a little bit more curvy, so I did keep the stitches quite small. And again, the stitches are the same size. I'm not being very like detailed and specific about like the size of the stitches. So I'm just adding some going along, and I did write the letters using that silver paint pen just to guide me because I don't think I would be able to do that freehand. And but by the end of it, the phrase was kind of like swallowed up by like the marking. So I'm still trying to figure out how to like make that stand out. I'm thinking now I might just go in with like some white paint, just kind of lightly in between the letters and kind of around it. So when and if I do that, I will update you guys on Instagram and Facebook. So please do like stay tuned for that so that you can see how I fix that problem. So I'm just going through following the lines. Sorry, I'm sometimes out of frame. Sometimes I need to bring it a little bit closer so that I can see what I'm doing. And again, you can slow this down in this part if you want to. And I'm doing, what do you call it, back stitch, which basically it's not like running stitch where there's like a space in between each stitch. It's back stitches when there's like no spaces, as you can see. And I'm doing that, of course, because it's letters so that you can clearly see what it is. So yeah, that's the stitch I'm doing, and I'm not doing it properly. I'm pretty sure I'm not. I think I've always done back stitch like the wrong way, like, but it still looks like back stitch most importantly. So as long as it looks like what you want it to, it's perfectly fine. But I'm pretty sure I'm not doing that how you're supposed to. And like when you're doing like letters like E and A, especially E, you really want to make sure that your stitches are nice and small so that it really goes with the curve. So you can see that I did have to like undo one of the stitches there, and I kind of have to adjust to suit because of course like the thread is thicker than what I just wrote down. So I did have to go a little bit like higher just so that you can see like the space of the E. It can be a little bit tricky doing E's, but it's not too bad once you get used to it. And after I did the embroidery at closing the loop, that helped because I did do like a few words on my embroidery hoop when I was practicing. So I was able to like see how to do that. And I'm thinking maybe I should have done the word breathe like with the orange thread. So I could always like redo that. And the camera did cut off at some point, so you did miss me doing everything else, but again, the same technique. And now I'm going to do French knots, and I learned this at closing the loop, and it's super cool. You like wrap the needle like 3 to like 8 times. I just did mine like I think 3 to 4 times. I didn't want like the knot to be too big, and you can see I'm having to really tug there from the back because I did do that really tightly. You can do a little bit looser, but because I'm only new to it, I'm keeping it quite tight. So you can see when I pull through, the knot's like at the top, and it basically creates like a full stop, which is really cool. So I did like 3 of those. So it's like breathe dot 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 dot. And you wrap it, I think it's clockwise. I might be getting that wrong. If it's not working, wrapping it clockwise and wrap it anti-clockwise. Because if you wrap it the wrong way, then it'll just go through like any regular stitch, but you don't want that because then it just creates a really nice like 3D element to it, and it just looks really cool. So again, that is like in the little pamphlet, and if you are struggling on how to do some of those stitches, just YouTube up like the stitches. It has the stitches names in that little booklet so that you can see exactly. Okay, so I'm just finishing off there and you can see a little close up and I'm happy with that. So now I'm just going to make sure that like the focal image is how I want it, and it was covering up like the dots a little bit of the words, so I will cut off the bottom there just a little bit, and because it's a curve I'm just having to follow the curve, and I do that a little bit like not as neat as I wanted it to, so I do like finish that off so you can see it's a little bit jagged. So yeah, I'm just neatening that off, and that's pretty much it. So I'll be finishing off the video with some talking because I'll show you what I have and have not used, and stay tuned for more videos because there will be more. So thanks for watching, and on to the next part of the video. Okay, so I'm finished for now. You'll see better close-ups at the end of the video, and at the moment the breathe here that I've embroidered is kind of like getting swallowed up by the background, but I can't really figure out how to make that pop at the moment. But when I do, I'll just update everyone on Facebook and Instagram. So yeah, so that's it for now. The stitches were quite simple. I just did these like cross ones and just like attached the ribbon on with that, which was really quite tricky. And I did show when I was doing it, but I did it extremely close to the edge of the hoop, which made it quite tricky. So if you want to do something like that, might be an idea to move it a little bit inwards, and just remember that, because I was thinking I was fine because I was seeing the outside here, but there's the inner hoop that's right underneath here, which is why I made that mistake. But it all ended up fine and I liked how it looked. So I'll just show you what I have left. I still have a lot of stuff left, so I'll put this aside. So of course I have my paint, my acrylic printing medium, both paint pens, paintbrush, of course. Make sure and wash your brush with soap and water when you're finished using it, because even once you've rinsed it with water, if you feel the paintbrush, you can still kind of feel the printing medium on it. So it's important that you wash it with soap and water to make sure that it removes everything. I still have a lot of ribbon and sari silk and stuff left. I didn't use any of my flowers. I only used one button, so I still have 6 left. I still have a lot of beads left. I only used these ones, so I haven't used these micro beads yet. Needle, of course. I didn't use any of the reflective like mirror embellishments, so I still have lots of that left. Embroidery thread, still have a lot of that left. I haven't wrapped that up and put that back together yet. So that's from like this package that I have left. And then I still have all my papers left. I didn't use any of those. I only use from this chiffon fabric, the plain one. So I still have loads of that left as well as the satin and the patterned chiffon. And that's it. And of course like the instruction like kind of manual. So that's it for now. I will have future videos coming up, so follow me on my Facebook page, join my Facebook group to get like behind the scenes and like discounts on different things, like including the mixed media box, and also follow me on Instagram where you'll see like when I'm filming, so you can kind of see when new videos will be coming out, and I try to do at least 3 per box, so there will be more, especially since I have so much left. I want to show you how you can use it on different kind of bases, especially since I've used the embroidery hoop, and you can remove what you've done from the embroidery hoop. You just like loosen this up and move it out. I'm keeping mine in at the moment, but if you wanted to, and then you wanted to say use like the satin fabric or something, because it's a little bit stronger, I wouldn't use the chiffon, it's too loose, to create something else using the embroidery hoop, then you can, but I won't be doing that at the moment, so I will show you how to create things on a few different bases. So Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to click that bell next to the subscription button so you can get notified whenever I upload a video. And if you haven't gotten this box and you're interested in purchasing one, please do follow the links below where you can find the June box as well as some previous boxes which are still in stock on my Ticktail site. So thanks again for watching, and I hope you join me again for another video. Bye!